Welcome to the Family Office Sherpa podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Parkin, founder and managing director of Hall Road Investments. The aim of this podcast is to provide practical and implementable advice for those looking to build, manage, or service a family office. This is not, however, investment advice, so please check the disclaimer in the show notes. In this episode, we are covering family offices' use of professional services.
This is the Family Office Sherpa.
Now, for a bit of context, my first engagement about 6 years ago was to find a family office, a new tax and accounting service provider. Basically, they needed to engage a larger firm that could assist with, amongst other things, global tax and some complex estate planning. All family offices that I work with have a professional service relationship of some kind. It can be Big Four, your KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, and EY, or those very good global mid-tiers, all the way down to local accountants, or those that have been with the family since the business was started. So long-term relationships and obviously those that are heavily entwined. A lot of the time, because of that heavily entwined nature, these are relationships that are very difficult to change. The role of Hall Road, a lot sometimes, is to make sure the office that I'm working with has the appropriate counterparty for the size and the stage of the family office, so where it is within that generational component, its complexity, and not necessarily size dictates complexity, but for the size and the services required, we need to make sure that it's appropriate. Some of the examples of when this changes, in my experience, is, say, the sale of the operating business often comes up. The sale of the actual business itself is usually handled in some way by a firm that does the transaction. And what I find is a lot of families that have a great experience with that transaction end up utilising that firm, once the single family office is started. Intergenerational changes can really mean that this needs to be reviewed. The advisor that might be with the operating business and with the parents might not be appropriate for the next generation. It might not be and that appropriateness might be dictated by the advisors themselves. They might say, well, no, we're retiring, or we're getting to that point where we need a different type of advice model. The other thing is establishing tax efficiency across the investment portfolio. I see a lot of investment portfolios that are not optimized for tax. And sometimes that's because the advisor on the professional services side sees it outside of their remit, or maybe it's outside of their skill set, or they don't look at that, or they haven't been mandated for that. So sometimes it's a good idea to make sure that that includes the efficiency of the portfolio. Like I mentioned, estate planning. We keep hearing about this intergenerational wealth transfer that's occurring that sometimes needs very sophisticated advice, in particular on the tax and things like that, and setting up of trusts and some quite complex structures. The other one is a change from having a heavily insourced tax piece or accounting piece and bookkeeping piece and administration piece, and looking to outsource that. And sometimes that is about finding a counterparty that has a little bit more of a broader a value proposition around sort of all these different components. As with most financial services firms, these professional services firms are wondering if the family office should be a standalone segment that requires a sort of a customized or bespoke service offering, or they might be just part of the larger client type. We are starting to see them have specialists, or they call them the family office services piece within these firms. So I guess the answer is in their actions at the moment, which is that they are moving into a more specialised, like we have a family office group or unit or something like that. And family offices themselves are beginning to see the benefits in having a dedicated family office unit in this partnership, or a partner that has significant family office experience. One that can act as a point of first contact for those looking at outsourcing the more complex needs that are very specific to family office types. I work with a lot of firms in this space, so the point of this podcast episode is I thought it might be worthwhile providing my experiences, and hopefully that assists with those that are looking to review or seek new professional service counterparties. So what are we looking for here? You need to match. First of all, you need to match in complexity. I've seen clients look for highly technical and complex advice from firms or partnerships that do not have that expertise. And it's even if it's a one-off piece of work, you've got to get that sophistication level or the complexity level right, because you don't have to use them for everything. But I've seen the consequences of going low cost or being sensitive or too sensitive to current relationships to go outside and seek more sophisticated advice or advice from firms that have this as part of their core offering, and the consequences of going low cost for this, or consequences for not seeking, those with this skill set, is it's not just you, or it's not the generation that starts this process, but it's multiple generations that can be impacted by this and needing to unwind. And, you do hear these stories about, oh gosh, if only we did it this way when grandpa and grandma sold the business or something like that. Like, just make sure you pay up for good advice at certain times. Also, seek advocacy. So large firms have a significant amount of services, sometimes just this broad, and because in particular sometimes these big global firms, and sometimes they're not even known to the partner what these services that could potentially be. So you need someone that can navigate, or at least know someone that can help with navigating and be an advocate on your behalf. Someone that is interested in your needs, is an advocate for you. Like, we're on this journey together. We're going to navigate this firm that I work for, and we're going to find the services that are going to benefit you the most. That could mean going to, talking to other offices globally, going to New York or Toronto or London or Auckland or something like that, and saying, what are you doing for family offices? Oh, actually, that would be very cool. That would work really well with my Australian client base or my US client base or whatever. So being really collegial internally, but also, acting as an advocate for you and your family, for sure. Number 3, find a firm or person that actually understands the needs of family offices and can impart that experience, that career capital to you, not just learning from your relationship and then, to a certain degree, on selling that as a new product. One family office I spoke to gave some very specific feedback on this, which, after meeting a potential advisor, they said, I got the impression that the work we would have them do for us would actually form a product for them, rather than allow us to benefit from their experience. So, what we're looking for as a family office is someone that can help us, not to just take out learnings from our complexity and then on-sell that. To further sort of articulate that, I remember meeting a large family office on why they'd chosen their particular, in this case, a Big Four provider. I asked them the process of selection, and expecting them to say, it was the tax piece or something like that. They said the tax piece is relatively commoditized. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but this is what they said. If you're using one of the large global firms via an experienced partner, then you can be pretty confident they should know what they're doing. The real difference was their ability to provide services that were unique to our family office. This included introductions to specialists inside and outside the firm, and networking with other family offices that they'd curated a list of, they'd put some thought into, and the feelings that they were on the side of the family, not just the firm side. So number 4, reject gatekeeping and embrace outside specialists, like I sort of mentioned there. Successful firms in this space are willing to refer into businesses that may technically overlap with their service, but know that the client will have a better experience, both from an effective efficiency, from a cost perspective, and then you as the firm can, as the partner within the incumbent firm, say, oh, look, we do this, but this firm does it better. We do this complex component, or we do this administration, or we do this estate planning. But if you're looking for this particular service, then this firm is for you. I see that work really, really well in things like aggregated reporting and wealth management. But yeah, just being able to say we are the best of breed here, they are the best of breed there, and we're comfortable. We're confident enough in our service to allow, not to allow, but to encourage that kind of interaction. The other thing is to make it modular. I've seen offices curate this infrastructure, this service provider that includes, like I mentioned, that highly complex global tax transactional consulting piece, and they might use a larger firm and they might do more one-off pieces there. But then they'll use another firm for the more, day-to-day portfolio admin, bookkeeping, sort of smaller, more financial planning style of firm, maybe for the individual family members, for tax, things like that. So being modular and just creating like a good fit for purpose, a curated infrastructure, I think is a really good idea. So how do you choose these services? So we go through an RFP a lot of the time. So getting a questionnaire together, listing the priorities, getting so when we go to these service providers, they understand what we're looking for. The other thing as well is I find if you've got an incumbent provider, especially a sort of a larger firm, ask them what other services, or ask them to go out and ask others about what services they have internally. Sometimes you find that they're already providing these in another office, and you say, well, actually, I'd like to do that. Can you bring that here? So, and that helps both parties. That helps the family office and helps the professional services firm going, well, we're actually building out something that's almost, family office services specific. So I think that's a good idea from both sides. As a family office, be prepared with an idea of what your fee budget looks like. Don't expect, like I said, highly sophisticated advice to come cheaply, but allocate a certain amount of fees to that, and then look for efficiencies or cost effectiveness in other components, like investing. Have a fee budget. If you're investing, you obviously allocate higher fees to higher, less efficient, more sophisticated componentry, and then the more broad commoditized version, that's where you can save on. So that's my feedback. It's not exhaustive. Obviously, everyone has their different needs and things like that and different processes. But look, if you're stuck on how to start this process of selecting an advisor in the space, please feel free to reach out. So Shaun, so SHAUN at hallroad, HALLROAD.com.au. I have this is probably one of the spaces that I have quite a lot of data on. And if you're a family office looking for assistance within that, selection process, then I'm happy to help. So that's it for this episode. If you found it interesting, please ding the little bell or rate it or do whatever you do with podcasts. If you think someone might find it interesting, feel free to send it on. You find me on LinkedIn, Shaun Parkin. I'm under the Hall Road banner. And if you want to find the Sherpa newsletter, that's at hallroad.com.au, and there's also a members area there with some past articles and things like that. So until next time,